Alex Hormozi has blown up on the internet in the last year or so. He's a successful entrepreneur. He posts tons of content around how to be successful, how to sell, how to run a business, growing a company and gaining success. He was on Modern Wisdom, hosted by Chris Williamson. This is one of the fastest growing podcasts worldwide with a massive following. And he shares some of the life lessons from the greatest thinkers on the planet. This episode discusses 23 controversial truths about life. 23 profound statements that Alex has mentioned or tweeted, and they dissect and discuss them. These statements are sort of notes to self, as Alex says. Chris and Alex have great chemistry. They clearly get on behind the camera as well. I found it a really valuable podcast to watch, and I think you should watch it too. However, some of the key areas do have crossover through the podcast. So I'm going to summarize the top 4 points that I found from this 3-hour podcast and distill it into roughly 10 minutes. Here are the 5 biggest takeaways from the Chris Williamson, Alex Hormozi podcast. Number 1, stop caring about other people's opinions. This is all about overcoming the fear of what other people think of you. This is stopping from people even trying in the first place. Trying whatever the thing is. Starting a business for the first time. Creating an Instagram page for your cooking channel. Asking for a promotion. We think so much that people are going to judge us. They're going to see us trying to do something, see us trying to put ourselves out there. And putting yourself out there is hard. But I think most of all, what we're scared of is that if we do put something out there and it fails, they're going to see us fail. They, being friends, family, peers, or just random people you follow that you don't really care about their life. They're going to judge me, so why should I even try? Alex links this quite morbidly to death. He says, well, in 100 years, we're going to be dead. In 100 years, they're going to be dead. No one's going to remember us except really close friends and family, maybe. So why does it matter what someone thinks that in 100 years is going to be dead that's not going to really care about me anyway? The most successful woman in history died early this year. And when was the last time you thought about her? So who's that? That is the Queen. The Queen died early this year. How often have you been thinking about the Queen? She was the most successful woman in history, arguably. So do you really think people are going to care if your Instagram page about cooking didn't pop off like you wanted it to? The quote that Alex references on the podcast is that you aren't afraid to fail. You're afraid of what they're going to think about you when you fail. However, they'll probably think about you as much as they're thinking about you now. And they're not thinking about you now, which is a bit rough, but I take the perspective of, well, if they're not thinking about me now, why not do the thing that I want to do anyway? And he says, if they aren't thinking about me now, wouldn't you want to at least have been on the radar as someone actually tried something?
It's like you and I are going back and forth on trying to figure out how many different ways can I say that either the people that you're worried about judgment are going to die, or that you're going to die, or that even if you do achieve the thing, they won't care anyways. Or if you don't do anything, they won't think about you to begin with. And don't you want to be thought about to begin with? Like, don't you want some level of significance?
However, sadly, this is what Chris comes back with, is that not trying in the first place has no penalty. You never have to feel the negative side of failing. If you don't put yourself out there, don't reach for the stars, you never have to fail. You sort of fail in silence, and that's okay because you never really tried anyway. But what a sad existence that is. Just literally guaranteeing long term that you're not going to have any success because you've never actually tried. It only guarantees that in long term, you're just not going to be happy. They sort of link this to investing and how some people are afraid to invest their money, opting for saving instead. However, this is guaranteed to fail in the long term because the value of cash will go down. So you should be invested, should play the game just for a chance that you might beat, a chance for success. You have to be in it to win it. And if you aren't really trying, you ain't going to go anywhere. The second point, decrease your time to action. Decrease your time to make decisions and take action. The longer you take to make a decision, the longer it's going to be playing on your mind, taking up mental capacity, which also takes away from other thoughts you could be having. They say there's an anxiety cost or an attention cost that comes with this. Most decisions, we know the answer. We probably know the answer. It probably takes maximum 10 minutes to really think about it. However, when it's a big decision, we don't like to decide it straight away. We want to put it off a bit. I'll think about that in a week. We give ourselves that extra time, but we're not thinking about it all week. We just then know we've got that decision to make and it's hanging over us that whole time. And if all that matters in life is time and attention and how we spend both of them, what we do with our time, our attention, and how, then our time and attention is being taken over by a thought that we haven't actioned. We're suffering much more than we need to. My favorite example of this is washing up. As soon as I finish cooking, I know I have to wash up. It's like a 5-10 minute task, but I know I've got to do it and I don't want to do it. And so I'll put it off. But then I think about it And then half an hour I think about it again. And then sometimes I put it off to the next day. And then I wake up, I'll go downstairs to the kitchen. There's the washing up. Look, I don't have a dishwasher. So I end up suffering all evening and overnight for a task that takes me 15 minutes to do. And it's a funny example. I'm not thinking about the washing up all night, but you know what I mean. We do this with every unclosed loop, every action that we know we need to take. That tough conversation we need to have with our bosses. Awkward conversation with our friends. When we've done the thing, we're actually enthused by it. We're buzzing that we've had the conversation in the end. It's the weight off our shoulders. They were joking on the podcast that when you finish one of these conversations, you want to have some more of them. How many other things I've been holding on to do I need to ring up them? Applying this same formula to day-to-day life and decision making, you can move up to 7 times faster in life than someone else by simply making decisions end of day rather than end of week. 7 times more progress. If me and you have something on our minds and you think, yeah, I need to do this thing, I'll do it at the end of the week. I'm in that same situation. I'm like, I've got this thing to do. I'm going to do it today, do it by the end of the day. No worries. I'm instantly 7 times ahead of you. It's a simple formula, but I think it's a powerful framing exercise. If it takes me 1 day, something that takes you 7 days to action because you've been overthinking about it and not actually on the task, I'll be a week ahead of you in 1 day. And I can achieve in 4 days what's going to take you a month to complete. That scaled further ahead can really help you see like how actually taking action, decreasing that time to action can really help excel things, speed things up. Point number 3 is trying your best, ensuring you work as hard as you can. Alex has a quote that I've quoted before. You don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt. Working hard not only builds confidence, but it can help guarantee success. At the time of filming, Alex was preparing for a presentation he was going to do to roughly 1 million people, like a virtual presentation on YouTube. He said for a presentation that is done in the past, where it's presented to about 10,000 people, he would put in probably 100 hours of prep work. For a presentation to 1 million people, he could justify having to work 100 times harder, put in 100 times the amount of hours in to do that presentation. And that's the math. 10K people, 100 hours, 1 million people is 100 times that. So 100 times 100 hours, a lot of hours. But that way, by preparing that much, when it comes to the event himself, he knows he's prepared. He couldn't have possibly done anything more. His confidence put the work in, so if things fail miserably because of a network error, the site crashes, any sort of external issue, he knows that internally he's put the work in. He will be successful regardless. It's all about having that internal goal of knowing you've put the work in, worked as hard as you can. If things don't go well, you still know you've tried your best. It's that cliche, at least you tried your best. But that rings true here. On the flip side of this, if you were to blag the presentation, worst case scenario, it does not go well. You fail miserably in front of 1 million people. 2, if it does go okay, you're probably going to feel a little bit guilty because you know you didn't put the work in the first place. They link this and mention another quote, which is, true hell is when the person you are meets the person you could have been. The person you are now, the person that may be cutting some corners, taking things easy, meets the version of yourself that has been working hard all day, every day, grinding as hard as you can. You see what you could have become if you'd worked a little bit harder and been a bit more consistent, which is not a fun exercise to do because imagine that, like, you meet this guy at heaven, that the guy you could have been, and you're like, I could have been a professional footballer. I didn't know that. Could have been a billionaire if I just worked a little bit harder. Take that with a pinch of salt and use it to sort of slightly motivate you, because to me, there's a lot more to life than just working hard all the time. You've got to have balance. You've got to enjoy the life. These guys are uber successful. Alex Hormozi loves work. That's his passion. So of course, he's going to want to be working as hard as possible all the time. However, I think it's a cool framing exercise to think like that version of yourself that you could be, or what you could become if you do work harder in different areas. Not all the time, obviously. Have a life. But there's are times when you know you're being lazy, that you probably could put in a bit more work. Number 4. You have already achieved goals you said would make you happy. Now, they said it in a sort of way that sounded pretty depressing, like everything's always out of your reach, as if you've done things in your life and you are still not happy, assuming that people are miserable. So I didn't think the way they said it was that cool, but it's the classic cliche. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. You said you were going to be happy if you reached this thing, you got there, you're not happy. The thing is, we're always happiest in pursuit of something. So you've got to enjoy the process. You imagine like the movie montage scene when the character's like developing, the Rocky cut scene. That's the thing. They are grinding and grinding and grinding, putting that hard work towards whatever the goal is from the film. That's your montage. That's what you're doing now when you're putting the work in. The sad thing is the movie montage might be over in 30 seconds. In life, the montage could take years. They argue that the hard work in pursuit of the goal is actually the fun part in hindsight. And thinking about that, so what were the things that you enjoyed looking back? For me, I remember being at uni with like month of exams, having back-to-back super late nights in the library, revising in the trenches with the boys. Now, at the time, it was a bit shit. The goal was to complete the exams to get qualified, to get your degree. But in hindsight, those nights were great. We'd be listening to the latest DJ set whilst we're revising, stocking up on energy drinks, sweets, anything to like power through. We were all in this together. It was an absolute grind. But in hindsight, those nights were sick. But Chris argues it's not just about the journey. It's about setting a destination in the first place, setting the goal. If you don't have a destination, if you don't have a goal, then you're not journeying towards anything. There is no journey. You don't have a journey to be on if you're not going anywhere. So setting goals is so useful, so key. And Alex tags onto this by saying the person that he wants to become is the goal, is the destination. That person that you're going to meet in heaven, that person that if you could have worked a little bit harder, he says that's his goal. And he says, if you wanted to sculpt that person, how would you do that? Would you give them easy times, quick wins? Nah, probably not. You know that best version of yourself probably had to struggle a bit. It probably took a lot of hard work to get to that point. So don't be afraid of the tough things. Cringe moment incoming. They are sculpting you into being the best person you can be. The final thought I'll leave you with is an exercise. Imagine that you're 80 years old. Imagine what life would be like for you. You won't be as mobile, probably won't be as healthy. You're going to be 80. Your 80-year-old self will give anything to be where you are today. So remember, these are the golden years. You've got your health, you've got your mentality, you've got your mental capacity, and you've got mobility. So be grateful, be present, take action, and enjoy the ride. And I'll see you in the next video.